Here a crab, there a crab, everywhere a crab, crab. It seems like as of the second season of Splatoon 3, the meta hasn't changed drastically at the highest competitive level ever since it launched in September of 2022. While certain things have been adjusted, from new weapons being added to new kits becoming popular, it's clear that things are beginning to feel stale for anyone who plays a lot of Splatoon, especially in a team setting against other teams in a competitive environment. How did we get here, and did the 2.1 update help at all? Or did it kick problems further down the road? Hi, I'm Rose, and I've been playing Splatoon ever since the first game came out, day one. I've been a casual player and Twitch streamer of Splatoon for years, and more recently I've been involved in the competitive scene as someone who tries to avoid relying on meta picks for their own sake. I really just want to have fun playing my favorite video game series. If you enjoy the video, make sure to subscribe and click the bell for notifications, and if you want people to play Splatoon with, swing by my streams on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursday nights. The Splatoon series first launched in 2015, and since then it has had a lot of different ebbs and flows in the meta, a term that refers to the mechanics, strategies, and picks in a game that are on trend at a certain point that is considered to be the most optimal way to play. This changes depending on adjustments to an ever-evolving game, often found in multiplayer games. Overwatch players will remember things like the GOATS meta, which had multiple tanks and healers being picked instead of DPS characters, and Splatoon has had a variety of changes across the games, plus buffs and nerfs to certain weapons or specials to make distinctive eras of which weapons are favored in competitive matches. For example, the beginning of Splatoon 2 in its 1.0 state saw extremely frequent picks of the Tri-Slosher, a short-range, extremely quick and aggressive frontline weapon, to the extent that some competitive teams had 2 or 3 people using it in a given match. In addition to its aggression from the main weapon, the sub-weapon it came with was Burst Bomb, a weak but incredibly fast and resource-efficient bomb to finish off someone in the midst of a quick fight, and its special Ink Armor allowed it to take on aggressive fights with more survivability. With multiple people running it, the protected aggression for the whole team made fights super fast. However, once the version 1.3 update arrived, the nerfs to the weapon's range and damage meant it was no longer seen as an overpowered must-pick weapon. Right now we're seeing something similar in the first half year of Splatoon 3 with the Splash-o-matic, another quick, short-range frontline weapon. The 2.1 update that arrived on January 18th surprised many, myself included, that there wasn't a single nerf to this weapon, just a slight reduction to its special. For people who haven't had the agony of fighting off 2 or 3 crab tank specials back to back, I don't know how much I can convey the frustration of fighting a special weapon with high health that can easily stall or push for objectives from a safe distance, due to both of the firing modes of the crab tank. One being a steady stream of fire that has long reach, and the other being cannon shots that can arc over cover, particularly if a player with the crab has positioned themselves high up. I picked up a new weapon to the game, the Splatana Wiper and the Splatana Stamper, with gear that lets me shred objects quicker. But if my opponent knows to use their special from good positioning, there's little I can do to attack their weak point from behind. Most of the high-level teams can be found running 2 or 3 splashes per game, making 3/4 of a lobby a single weapon, in a game that has 68 of them. Clearly, something needed to change with the chill season, aka Season 2, of Splatoon 3 releasing. We saw buffs to some weapons that are good counters to the crab tank, such as the Splatanas and the Tri-Stringer Bow, but still, the splash was left untouched. As was crab tank, mostly. Okay, Nintendo's playing it slow, not wanting to act quickly and foolishly. I can respect that. I held out my hope for version 2.1. It had a lot of confusingly worded changes that are still being figured out, such as a rework to Ninja Squid that leaves a brief trail of ink when you dip into your ink for an exchange of the player swimming faster than they used to with this gear ability, and a few buffs to shooters which may come down to bite us in the future. More on that later in this video. But I heard so many enthusiastic players scrolling down and down the list waiting for some mention of the Splash-o-matic to get nothing. What do we get? A crab tank nerf of a whopping 1 second reduction for its duration. While this might be significant on weapons that can't get their specials up quickly enough, this isn't the case for Splash. As a quick painter, it can get points for its special very quickly, so if you have multiple people on the weapon, it's easy for you to have a teammate ready for any offense or defense point to have their crab ready, which means the other team needs to do the same. So it becomes a game of when exactly do you have the special ready, your positioning, and your aim. While these are impressive skills for sure, and I don't want to imply that it takes no skill to play this particular team setup, it becomes stale and boring, especially after 4 months of it for players and for spectators. One reason why I love Splatoon is the diverse weapon pool that encourages many different styles of gameplay. When you have 3/4 of players using the same weapon, it gets boring. That's why meta changes can be really exciting. They push you to try out different things, they keep spectators seeing new things, and getting burned out on seeing the same gameplay from both teams for the entire day of a tournament. One reason why low-level Splatoon tournaments are so fun is due to more people experimenting and playing weapons that are considered to be less optimal, but people find ways to make them work, which also takes opponents and spectators by surprise. It's just that dev changes can encourage these changes. When the Splatana wiper got a buff to how well it can paint, letting it get out of tricky situations easier, I definitely decided to start practicing the weapon more, and it's been a blast to learn a different playstyle. And I've definitely been practicing the Splatanas more as a potential counter to the pesky crab tank. Would I have picked it up had there not been player discussion about the Splatanas being able to take out crab players? Maybe, but I might not have picked it up so soon. Metas don't have to change solely from reworks from the developer side, but that is often the impetus for players to change. The final couple years of Splatoon 2 saw a lot of spamming of the Tenta missile special due to the way it worked, and a lot of people expressed concerns with that in Splatoon 3. As soon as an update made it harder to grind out points toward the Tenta missile special, you saw people changing up both weapon picks and their playstyles away from passive painting for constant missiles, to people using them to counter a specific opponent or to push an objective. Because there had been no change to missiles until then, people hadn't changed how they used missiles. That's what I fear is happening with Splash-o-matic's use of Crab Tank. If you can easily spam your special by getting points to it so quickly, and in Crab's case, it lasts for 8 whole seconds, enough to take an objective on its own from safety, and you see massive pick rates of it that result in wins, then there's no reason for a lot of players to change what they're doing until other players find a counter. An important part of meta changes, to be sure. Or developers make adjustments themselves. Speaking of meta changes, the most recent change as of mid to late January is the increased usage of the Tentatech Splattershot, referred to as the T-Tech from here on. The Splattershot weapons are, like the Splash-o-matic, effective painters, making them great for controlling space on the map quickly and for building their specials quickly. The T-Tech kit has the triple Ink Strike special, a strong one for controlling space, taking and defending objectives with coordinated team pushes, and now, for bullying crabs. Its recent buff increased the damage of each strike by a whopping 50%, in addition to increasing its radius by 10%, meaning it takes down specials with HP, such as Crab Tank and Big Bubbler, much faster. However, even after this change, and with the increased picks of T-Tech, we're still seeing top-level players use 3 Splash-o-matics with 1 player on the sloshing machine, because despite its recent nerfs, the machine is still one of the best weapon picks for challenging crabs. Clearly, Nintendo's hope of version 2.1 changes giving people a reason to play something other than those 2 weapons didn't work. In addition, with the big buff to T-Tech and the lowered special cost for weapons like the 52 Gal, I worry that when hopefully Crab Tank and Splash get some much needed nerfs, we'll see T-Tech as the big problem. Nintendo respectfully makes adjustments slowly, not wanting to completely wreck something, but sometimes when they make small buffs over time, seen in the several buffs to shooter weapons in Splatoon 2 across multiple patches, we realize a year later that those multiple small changes made one weapon the new problem. I'd love to see the Splatoon dev team show some love to the barely ever picked weapons, like the Brellas. Some of their brand new weapons, especially the Splattershot Nova, are interesting and different, and with some slight buffs to them and some nerfs to the clearly overpowered, we might see more variety. Until then, what are we to do? When the end of Splatoon 2 meta got stale, we saw more tournaments that played with different rule sets, such as Spawn Point's Shopping Spree tourney, which assigned every weapon a cost. Each team couldn't go over a particular cost, and the meta-heavy weapons were the most expensive, so we got to see varied weapon picks. Some people in Splatoon 3 are now tossing around the idea of new tourneys that restrict the number of the same weapon on one team, preventing team comps like this. Whatever we do, if we're not enjoying something about the game, I think it's important for us to find a solution. We can hope for the developers to fix things, but I don't believe in doing something that makes you miserable, especially not in what's in my favorite game. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, I'm curious what weapons you'd love to see adjustments to. Until next time, stay fresh.